For 4 years, I believed that my own mother had forgotten me, that my sister had moved on with her life without looking back. Until one Monday morning, when I opened that cloth bag before my husband threw it in the trash, my world collapsed, but not in the way you imagine. My name is Eulalia. I'm 72 years old, and this story I'm going to tell happened when I was only 19. It seems like a lifetime ago, and it was. But there are wounds that time doesn't completely heal, you know? It just teaches us to live with them. Before I continue, I wanted to ask something from you who are listening now. If you could leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, I'd be really happy. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing that my story can reach so many different places. Leave your city there, and I'll read every single one, okay? Well, let's go. This story begins back in 1967. I had just turned 19. I lived with my mother, Alma, and my younger sister, Bernice, who was 16 at the time. We lived in a small town in upstate New York, one of those towns where everyone knows everyone, where life passed slowly, to the sound of the church bell marking the hours. My father had passed away about 5 years earlier from a heart problem. It all happened so fast. One day, he was complaining of chest pain. The next day, God had taken him. My mother became a widow at 42, with 2 young daughters to raise alone. She sewed for others, made dresses on order, embroidered wedding trousseaux. That woman worked from sunup to sundown. Her hands were always full of needle pricks, but she never complained. We didn't have much, but we had enough. My mother always said, "A full belly and a clear conscience is all we need in this life." And it was true. We were happy, you know? In that simple way, but happy. Every Friday, my mother made cornbread, and we'd have coffee together, talking, laughing. Bernice was always bugging me like younger sisters do, but I loved her so much. We slept in the same bed, shared everything. It was on a Sunday at church that I met Octavian. It was June, cold enough to freeze. I remember it clearly. I was wearing a light blue cardigan my mother had made, and he was in the communion line, right in front of me. Tall man, elegant bearing, well-trimmed mustache. Must have been about 34 at the time, 15 years older than me. He wore a suit, tie, polished shoes. Had an air of importance, you know? After Mass, he came to talk to me at the church door, took off his hat, made a small bow, very polite. "Miss Eulalia, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Octavian. I work at the county clerk's office." His voice was firm, measured. He had been educated, you could tell by the way he spoke. He asked my mother's permission to visit our home during the week. My mother was a bit wary at first. "A much older man, Lalia. You're still so young." But Octavian was respected in town. Had a steady job, his own house, didn't drink, didn't gamble, went to Mass every Sunday. At the time, that was everything a mother could want for a daughter's future. You understand? Security, stability. He started making visits. Every Wednesday and Sunday, he'd show up at the house, always on time, always bringing something. A handful of blackberries, a head of lettuce from his garden. Once he brought a piece of pork that his cousin had butchered. He'd sit in the living room talking with us, asking about my mother, being attentive. He seemed like a good man. I was young, naive, full of dreams. I'd never dated anyone. Octavian was the first man who had shown real interest in me. He talked about giving me a comfortable life, that I wouldn't need to work outside the home, that I'd only take care of the house and the children we were going to have. He promised to take me to see the big city one day, New York City, which I'd never been to. He said I was pretty, delicate, that I'd be a perfect wife. After 6 months of dating, he asked for my hand in marriage. It was on a Sunday afternoon, after lunch. He talked with my mother in the kitchen, very serious, very formal. My mother came to call me. "Lalia, Octavian wants to marry you. What do you think?" I remember my heart racing. Marriage was every young woman's dream at the time. Having a husband, your own house, your family. I said yes. The wedding was in January 1968, a simple wedding at the main church with a small reception at my mother's house. I wore the dress she had sewn for me over 3 months, all in white lace, with a veil that had been my grandmother's. Bernice was my maid of honor, all fancy in a light pink dress. My mother cried through the entire Mass. Later she told me, "It's not sadness, my daughter. It's that you're growing up, leaving home, but I'm happy for you." Octavian's house was on the other side of town, about a 40-minute walk from my mother's house. It was a good house, brick, 3 bedrooms, a big backyard. He had inherited it from his father, who had also passed away a long time ago. He lived there alone. The house was kind of empty, kind of cold, but I thought, I'll make it my own. I'll fill it with plants, with pretty curtains, with the smell of good food. The first days were strange, as they are for any newlywed, I imagine. We didn't really know each other yet, you know? Octavian was kind, but somewhat distant. Wasn't much for conversation, for affection. He worked all day at the clerk's office and came home tired, wanting dinner and silence. I cooked, cleaned, washed, ironed, did everything a wife had to do at the time. My mother and Bernice came to visit me the first week. They brought a cake, some dish towels my mother had embroidered for me, some mint and basil seedlings for the backyard. We sat in the kitchen talking, laughing, catching up. My sister told me the neighborhood gossip. My mother wanted to know if I was eating properly, if I needed anything. Octavian arrived from work in the middle of their visit, greeted everyone, polite as always, but you could tell he didn't like it much. He got kind of serious, kind of tense. After they left at dinner time, he commented, "Your mother and sister are very present, aren't they?" He spoke in a strange tone, kind of critical. I didn't quite understand what he meant by that, but I didn't pay much attention. Then it started. It started so slowly, so subtly, that I didn't even notice at first. It's funny how evil sometimes disguises itself as care, as concern, how prison sometimes looks like protection. A week later, I mentioned I was going to visit my mother on Saturday afternoon. Octavian said, "Oh, you're going again? But you went last week with her here. Don't you think your mother might find you a bit clingy? You're married now, Eulalia. You have to give her space too." That hurt, you know? Made me think, am I really being annoying? Does my mother think I can't live without her? I postponed the visit, only went 2 weeks later. When I got there, my mother was surprised. "I thought you were coming last week. Did something happen?" I lied. Said I'd been sick, a bad headache. I didn't want her to know I'd been embarrassed because of Octavian's comment. Then it was Bernice's turn. She had the habit of showing up at the house without warning in the middle of the week after school. She'd arrive all excited, wanting to talk, show me something that had happened. I loved her visits. Made me feel less alone, you know? But Octavian started complaining. He said Bernice went there when he was resting, that she made too much noise, that she disrupted the house routine. "Eulalia, your sister is still very young. She doesn't understand that a married couple's house needs privacy. You need to talk to her, set boundaries." He spoke in such a rational, logical way that I thought he was right. I talked to Bernice, asked her to give notice before coming, not to come every day. She was hurt. I saw it in her eyes. "Okay, Lalia. Sorry if I was bothering you." That broke my heart, but I thought I was doing the right thing, that I was being a good wife, respecting my husband. The visits became more spaced out. First they were every week, then every 2 weeks, then once a month. And there was always something. Octavian needed me to stay home to help with something, or he was feeling sick and wanted me to stay with him, or it had rained too much and the road was bad. There was always a reason that seemed valid, that seemed reasonable. Then the letters started. My mother wrote to me, asking how I was, telling me news from home, sending new recipes she'd learned. The letters came by mail. The mailman left them in the box in front of the house. I loved receiving them. I'd read and reread them about 10 times, kept them all in a sewing box. But then something strange started happening. The letters stopped coming. A week passed. 2, 3, nothing. I thought it was odd. I wrote to my mother asking if everything was okay. I gave the letter to Octavian to take to the post office when he went to work in the morning, as always. I waited for a response. Nothing. I wrote again. Nothing. I got worried, thought something had happened. I mentioned it to Octavian. He said, "Do you think something's happening? The mail has been terrible lately, loses a lot of letters." Or then, he paused, got quiet. "Speak, Octavian." "No, forget it." "Speak, please." He sighed, made a face like he didn't want to speak, but was going to anyway. "I didn't want to hurt you, Eulalia, but have you stopped to think that maybe your mother and sister are too busy? You left home, got married, now they have their lives. It's natural for them to move forward, you understand?" That hit me hard, made me think terrible things. Had my mother gotten tired of me? Was she relieved to have one less mouth to feed? Had Bernice been so hurt by that conversation I had with her that she decided to forget me? I cried that night, cried hidden under the blanket so Octavian wouldn't hear. I felt abandoned, rejected, like I wasn't worth anything now that I was married. Octavian became increasingly attentive. He said I didn't need anyone but him, that he'd take care of me, that he was my family now. "You don't need them anymore, Eulalia. You have me. I love you. I'm always here." And I believed. I believed because I needed to believe, because loneliness hurts too much, and when someone offers a shoulder, we accept without thinking much. Months passed since the wedding, 6 months that seemed like years. The house I had imagined full of life, full of laughter, full of people, was getting quieter and quieter, emptier and emptier. Just me and Octavian and the silence. That heavy silence you feel when you're surrounded by walls, but without anyone really close. I kept writing letters to my mother. Every week I'd sit at the kitchen table, take the letter paper I kept in the drawer, and write. I'd tell her about my day, about recipes I'd tried to make, ask how she was, how Bernice was, ask if her sewing machine was working properly, if orders were good. I'd write and leave it on top of the sideboard in the living room for Octavian to take the next morning. Every morning he'd leave for work at 7 o'clock, take the letter, fold it, put it in his coat pocket. "Don't worry, I'll take it to the post office, Eulalia. Stay calm." And I'd stay calm, waiting for the response that never came. At first I thought it really was the mail. Back then it wasn't like today. Things took time. A letter could take weeks to arrive, depending on the volume. But 2 months, 3 months, without a single letter. There was an afternoon when I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to go to my mother's house without warning. I needed to see with my own eyes if everything was okay, if she was mad at me, if something had happened. I packed a small bundle with some bread I'd made in the morning and started walking. It was almost 3 miles of walking, but I didn't care. When I was getting close to my mother's street, about 3 blocks away, I met Mrs. Sebastiana, an old neighbor. She saw me and opened a huge smile. "Eulalia, I've missed you, girl. Your mother was commenting the other day that you don't come around anymore. How's married life?" That confused me completely. My mother was commenting that I wasn't coming around, but what about the letters and the responses I was sending? Mrs. Sebastiana must have noticed my surprised face because she asked if I was okay. I said yes, that I just had a bit of a headache, but everything was fine. I arrived at my mother's house, knocked on the door. It took a little while, but she opened. When she saw me, her whole face lit up. "Eulalia, what a nice surprise, my daughter." She hugged me tight, in that way mothers hug, you know, like they want to protect their daughter from everything bad in the world. We went inside. Bernice was in the living room mending one of her skirts. When she saw me, she came running to hug me too. "Sister, I thought you'd forgotten about us." She said it laughing, but I saw there was some truth in it. We spent the whole afternoon talking. My mother made coffee, warmed up some donuts she'd fried that morning. We caught up. She told me she'd gotten a big order of bridesmaid dresses for a wedding, that she was working late every day. Bernice told me she'd gotten a good grade on her math test, that there was a new girl at school. Then my mother asked, "Eulalia, did you get the letters I sent? I sent about 3, but you didn't answer any. I thought you were upset with me for some reason." My heart froze. "What letters, Mother?" "I didn't get any letters. I'm the one who's been writing to you every week and getting no response." We looked at each other confused. Bernice said, "I also sent you letters, sister. 2. I told you about that boy who came to pick me up at school. Remember I told you there was a boy who kept looking at me? Well, he had the courage to talk to me, but you didn't respond at all." I felt a tightness in my chest. "What do you mean?" "The letters were getting lost. All of them. Both the ones I sent and the ones they sent." My mother put her hand on mine. "My daughter, the mail really has been very bad. A lot of letters get lost along the way. Mrs. Teresina told me she sent a letter to her son in Albany and it never arrived. That must be it. But look, you can come visit me whenever you want, okay? This house has always been yours too." I stayed until late afternoon. When the sun started to set, I said I needed to go, that Octavian was going to arrive from work and I needed to make dinner. My mother wrapped some pieces of corn cake for me to take. "Give some to Octavian too and come back soon. Don't let so much time pass." She hugged me again, tight. On the way back, I kept thinking, how strange for all the letters to get lost. Was the mailman stealing them? Was someone taking them from the mailbox? But it didn't make sense. Why would anyone want to steal simple family letters? When I got home, Octavian was already there. He was sitting in the living room with the newspaper open, but you could tell he wasn't reading. When he saw me come in, he closed the newspaper slowly. "Where were you, Eulalia?" "I went to my mother's house, took some bread I made." He was quiet for a moment, then got up, came to where I was, took my face with both hands. "You didn't tell me you were going out. I was worried. I got home from work and the house was empty. Dinner wasn't ready. I thought something had happened to you. I'm sorry, Octavian. I didn't think I'd be gone so long. I was talking and lost track of time. Next time, let me know beforehand, okay? So I don't worry. I promised I would." That night, I made dinner quickly, rice with fried eggs and a small lettuce salad. He ate in silence. I mentioned the letters, said it was very strange for them all to get lost. He agreed. "Yeah, it really is strange. But you know how it is, Eulalia. The mail in small towns is a mess. Lack of staff, lack of organization. I think you'd better not keep sending letters. It's a waste of money on stamps. If you want to see your mother, go there in person. It's more reliable." That made sense to me at the time. Really, why spend money on stamps if the letter didn't arrive anyway? But then another problem started. Every time I said I was going to visit my mother, there was something. One week, Octavian had back pain and needed me to make hot compresses for him all day. Another week, he brought a bunch of his cousin's clothes for me to wash and iron, said his cousin needed help. There was a time when it rained for 3 days straight, and he said the road was dangerous, that I could slip and fall. There was always something. And I, naive as I was, believed. I thought he was right, that he was protecting me, taking care of me. The months kept passing. 1968 turned into 1969. I was 20 years old now. It had been more than a year since I'd gotten married, and I was feeling so old, so tired. It wasn't physical tiredness, it was soul tiredness, you know? The kind that weighs on you, that takes away your will to get out of bed in the morning. I spent my days doing household chores, sweeping, cleaning, cooking, washing, ironing. Everything always the same way, every day, the same routine, no change, no surprise. Octavian left in the morning, came back in the afternoon, had dinner, listened to the radio, went to sleep. The end. On Sundays we went to Mass, came back home, and that was it. I didn't have friends to talk to. The neighborhood women were all older, already had their groups, their conversations. I was the young woman who had married Octavian from the clerk's office. They were polite to me, greeted me when we met on the street, but that was it. No one came to visit me. No one invited me for coffee. And my family was getting farther and farther away. It was during this time that I started noticing something. Every Monday morning, Octavian took a cloth bag to the trash. It was a big bag, beige color, one of those market bags, and it was heavy. I saw him straining to carry it. His arm would get tense. At first, I didn't pay attention. I thought it was common trash, old stuff, paper. But then I started noticing it was every Monday, every single Monday without fail. And the bag was always there on Saturday night, leaning against the utility room wall, waiting. Once I asked, "Octavian, what do you throw away every Monday in that bag?" He didn't even look at me, kept tying his shoe. Old paper from work, documents that aren't needed anymore, drafts, those things. I bring it home at the end of the week and throw it away on Monday when the garbage man comes by. Wow, but is there that much paper? Yeah, Eulalia, you have no idea how much paper goes through the clerk's office. And I'm responsible for keeping everything organized, so I discard what's not needed anymore. It made sense. I didn't know anything about clerks' offices, about office work. He worked with paper all day. It was natural to have a lot of paper to throw away. But there was something strange. The bag was tied. Tied with a very tight knot, you know? Like he didn't want anything to fall out, or like he didn't want anyone to open it. I'd never thought about opening it. It never even crossed my mind. After all, it was trash. Who would want to open a bag of trash? The Mondays kept accumulating. I'd see him leaving with the bag early in the morning, sometimes even before having coffee, and coming back without it. He threw it in the street trash about 3 blocks down, where there was a vacant lot people used as a dump before the truck came by. There was one Monday when it rained a lot during the early morning. It rained so much the street flooded, turned into a river. Octavian couldn't leave the house in the morning, stayed home all day working on some papers he'd brought, writing, stamping. The bag stayed in the utility room. I passed by it about 10 times during the day, doing my things. On Tuesday morning, when the rain stopped, he took the bag, but I noticed it was even heavier. He strained even more to carry it, and there was something else. When he passed through the living room carrying the bag, I heard a little noise, a sound of glass hitting glass, very soft. That intrigued me. Paper doesn't make glass sounds. Paper doesn't hit anything. But I didn't say anything, didn't ask, I don't know why. I think I was already so used to not questioning, to just accepting, that it didn't even cross my mind to ask. A few more months passed. The loneliness kept getting tighter and tighter. I missed my mother, my sister, missed real conversation, laughter. Octavian didn't talk much. He'd answer what I asked, but didn't converse. You know when a person only says what's necessary, and that's it? It was like that. There was a day when I broke down. It was on a Sunday afternoon. We'd come back from Mass, had lunch, and he'd laid down to sleep. I was washing the lunch dishes, and out of nowhere I started crying. It wasn't little by little. It was the way you cry when you can't take it anymore, when everything's been stuck for a long time. I cried while washing dishes, cried while drying them, cried while putting them away. I wanted so badly to go to my mother's house, wanted so badly to hug her, hear her voice, smell the house, eat her food. But every time I thought about going, that thought came. Does she want to see you? Isn't she too busy? You're already married. You already have your life. You don't need to be clinging to her. It was Octavian's voice in my head, but it seemed like my voice. It seemed like I was the one thinking that. I decided to try again. I wrote a very long letter, 3 pages. I told her everything I was feeling, said I missed her, that I wanted to visit but time wasn't allowing it. Asked if she was mad at me for something. Asked about Bernice, if she was dating already, if she'd graduated from school. I wrote while crying, tears dripping on the paper and blurring some words. I sealed the letter very carefully, stuck on the stamp I'd saved in the drawer. Wrote my mother's address on the front with the prettiest handwriting I could manage and left it on top of the sideboard. The next morning, Octavian picked up the letter. "Another letter for your mother?" he asked. And the tone wasn't good. It was kind of tired, kind of irritated. "Yeah, it's been a long time since I sent one. I wanted to send this one. Eulalia, you know these letters aren't arriving. It's wasteful. But if you want to send it, send it. I'll take it." He took it, and I waited. 1 week, 2, 3, 4, nothing. Then I started to suspect. I started to think that maybe it wasn't the mail. Maybe it really was my mother who didn't want to talk to me. Maybe she'd been hurt that I got married and left home. Maybe she thought I'd abandoned her and Bernice. These thoughts tormented me day and night. Octavian noticed when I was down. He'd come, hug me, say I didn't need to be sad. "You have me, Eulalia. I'm here. I take care of you. You don't need anyone else." And I believed. Because when you're drowning, you grab onto any board, even if that board has nails. That's how 1969 ended. That's how 1970 began. Me increasingly alone, increasingly dependent on Octavian, increasingly thinking my family had abandoned me. And that bag kept going away every Monday morning, heavy, tied, taking away what I still didn't know was mine. There was a neighbor, Mrs. Clementine, who lived 2 houses down. She was a lady about 60 years old, a widow, who lived alone with a gray cat. She was quiet, reserved, but once in a while we'd run into each other at the clothesline when we were both hanging laundry. She'd always greet me with a nod, a small wave, and I'd respond the same way. But one day she came to talk to me. I was in the backyard, picking some collard greens to cook for lunch, and she appeared at the fence that divided our backyards. "Young lady, can I ask you something?" I was a bit startled. Wasn't expecting it, but I said yes. "Don't you have family around here? I never see anyone visiting you." The question caught me off guard. "I do, Mrs. Clementine. My mother and sister live on the other side of town, but we don't see each other much." She kept looking at me with eyes that seemed to see more than I was saying. "I understand. If you need anything at all, you can call me, okay? My door is always open." I thanked her, kind of not understanding why she was offering help, but that gesture stayed with me, stayed there tucked away, without me knowing that one day I'd need it. 1971 arrived with everything the same. The same house, the same silence, the same emptiness. I was 22 years old and felt like an old woman. I'd look in the mirror and see a tired woman with deep dark circles, with a dull look. I was no longer that 19-year-old girl who had married full of hope. It had been almost 2 years since I'd left my mother's house. 2 years. And I could count on one hand the times I'd been there. 3 times. Only 3 times in 2 years. And all the times had been quick, rushed visits, because Octavian needed me at home or because there was something important to do. Of the 3 times I went, my mother asked about the letters. "Did you get the one I sent last month?" I'd say no. She'd be sad, disappointed. "This mail is impossible, Lilia. Nothing arrives." And I'd agree. What else could I do? Bernice had grown. The 3 times I saw her, you could tell. She was becoming a young woman, her body changing, her way of speaking more mature. She'd gotten a boyfriend, a young man named Wilbur who worked at the bakery. My mother didn't like him much, thought he was too old for Bernice, but my sister was enchanted. I felt such envy. It wasn't bad envy. It was that envy of someone who looks and thinks, "I wish I had what you have." Bernice was living, was dating, was going out with friends, was laughing. And me, I was withering inside that house like a plant without sun. There was a day, it was a Thursday afternoon, when I had a crisis. I can't even explain exactly what it was. I was frying a steak for Octavian's lunch, and out of nowhere I started shaking. My whole body shaking, weak legs, racing heart. I had to sit on the kitchen floor, breathing deeply, trying to calm myself down. The steak burned in the pan. The smell of burnt fat filled the house. When Octavian got home from work, the kitchen was a mess, lunch was burned, and I was sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. He asked what had happened. I said I'd felt sick, that I didn't know what it was. He got angry, said I had to take better care of myself, that I couldn't get sick like that. Didn't ask if I was okay, didn't hug me. Just said he'd eat bread with butter and went to the living room. That night, I decided. I needed to see my mother. Needed to talk to her for real, without rushing, without Octavian hurrying me. Needed to vent, needed to cry in her lap like I did when I was a girl and something went wrong. On Saturday morning, I told Octavian, I'm going to my mother's house today. I'm going to spend the day there." He was having coffee, reading the newspaper, raised his eyes slowly. "Today won't work, Eulalia. I arranged for cousin Aristides to come have lunch here. You need to make good food to receive him." "But you didn't tell me, Octavian. I need to go see my mother." "I'm telling you now, and a husband's family is your family too. You need to receive my cousin properly." I swallowed my tears. Made fried chicken, fluffy rice, stuffing, potato salad. Cousin Aristides arrived at noon, stayed until 4 in the afternoon talking about politics, football, work. I served, washed dishes, cleaned everything up. When he left, I was exhausted. I said I'd go on Sunday. Then Octavian said that on Sunday we had Mass, and after that he wanted to rest, that the week had been hard. There was always something. It was that Saturday night that I started noticing something. The bag Octavian took every Monday was there in the utility room, as always, but this time it was different. It was even fuller, heavier it seemed, and the knot was kind of loose, like he'd tied it in a hurry. I passed by it about 5 times during the night. Every time I passed, I looked. That bag bothered me, I don't know why. It was just a trash bag, but there was something there that disturbed me, that made me uneasy. On Sunday morning, we went to Mass. We came back, had lunch, and Octavian lay down to sleep as always. I went to wash the dishes and kept thinking about the bag. Thinking. Why was I so fixated on that bag? Why did it bother me so much? Then a thought came into my head. A thought I tried to push far away, but that came back insistently. What if it wasn't work paper? What if there was something else in there? I shook my head trying to get that idea out. Of course it was work paper. Octavian had said so. He'd never lied to me. Or had he? I didn't know anymore. Didn't know anything anymore. Sunday night I slept badly. Kept tossing and turning in bed, waking up, falling asleep again. I dreamed about my mother. Dreamed she was calling me, shouting my name, but I couldn't reach her. There was a wall between us, a high wall, and I tried to climb it but couldn't. I woke up Monday morning at dawn, sweaty, my heart tight. It was 5:30 in the morning. Octavian was still sleeping beside me. I went to the kitchen, put water on to boil for coffee. Stood looking out the window, watching the day dawn slowly. Octavian woke up at 6:30, took a shower, got dressed, came to the kitchen. I served his coffee, bread with butter, a piece of cheese. He ate quickly, looking at his watch. "I have to leave earlier today. There's an important meeting at the clerk's office at 8 in the morning." He got up, grabbed his briefcase, gave me a dry kiss on my forehead. "See you later." He left. I heard the front door slam, heard his footsteps moving away on the sidewalk. And then I realized he hadn't taken the bag. I went to the utility room. The bag was there, still, full, waiting. I stood looking at it for about 5 minutes. My heart was beating fast, hands sweating. Part of me said to leave it alone, not to touch it, that it wasn't my business. But the other part, the part that was tired of doubt, of silence, of loneliness, that part was screaming for me to open it. I crouched down, grabbed the bag. It really was heavy, my God. I dragged it to the kitchen, where there was more light. Sat on the floor, the bag in front of me. Took a deep breath, held the ends of the knot, and started to untie it. The knot was tight, took a bit, but I managed. I opened the bag, and the world collapsed. The first thing I saw was paper, lots of paper, but it wasn't work paper. They were envelopes, dozens of white envelopes, some yellowed with time. I picked one up, it was sealed. I turned it over. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, was written my name, Eulalia, and the address of the house where I lived. The envelope had a stamp, had a post office cancellation mark. My mother had sent it, the mailman had delivered it, and Octavian had kept it without giving it to me. I picked up another envelope. Same thing. Bernice's handwriting this time. Another. There must have been at least 30 envelopes there, all addressed to me, all sealed, none opened. My hands started shaking. I opened the first envelope I'd picked up, the one from my mother, took the letter out, her shaky handwriting, words written carefully. My dear daughter, it's been 3 weeks since I've had news from you. I wrote 2 letters, and you didn't answer either one. I'm worried, Eulalia. Are you okay? Did something happen? Send me at least a little note saying everything's fine. Your sister is also worried. We love you so much, my daughter. Your mother, Alma. The letter was dated August 1968, 4 months after my wedding. I had never received this letter. Never knew my mother was worried, never knew she had written. I opened another letter and another and another. I read them all, one by one, sitting on the kitchen floor, tears streaming down my face. There was a letter from my mother telling me she missed me. There was a letter from Bernice telling me about her relationship with Wilbur, asking if I thought he was handsome. There was a Christmas letter, wishing happiness. There was a birthday letter. Congratulations, my daughter. It's been 20 years since you came into the world and filled my life with light. And I hadn't received any of them. Not one. But it wasn't just that. I stuck my hand in the bottom of the bag and pulled out more things. A package wrapped in brown paper. I opened it. It was cake. Cornbread, my mother's cake. But it was all moldy, green with mold, hard as a rock. By the smell and condition, this had been there for months. She had sent it, and I never received it. I pulled out another package. Cornbread. Same thing. Spoiled, moldy. There were jars of dulce de leche. 3 jars, all with cloth lids tied with string. The dulce de leche had soured. You could smell the bad odor. My mother had made that with her own hands, had wrapped it carefully, had sent it to the post office, and Octavian had thrown it in the trash bag. I kept taking things out. A bigger package wrapped in gift paper, pink paper with little white flowers. I opened it. It was a dress. A blue dress with white polka dots and a lace collar. My mother had sewn it. I knew her stitching, knew the way she did the hem. There was a little tag sewn inside that said, "For my daughter with love, Mom." There were 2 more dresses, one yellow, one green, all new, smelling like a wardrobe, folded perfectly. There was a shawl, a gray and white crocheted shawl with a flower pattern in the middle. I knew that shawl. It was my maternal grandmother's, my mother's mother. She had passed away in 1969. I remember my mother told me during one of the few visits I made, and this shawl was hers. My mother had sent it to me as an inheritance, as a keepsake, and I never knew. I pulled out more things. There was a cloth toy, a cloth doll, a cloth puppy sewn by my mother. For what? For when I had a child. She was preparing, was making grandmother things, full of hope, and I never knew. There was a rosary, 3 different rosaries, with wooden beads, with a metal crucifix. There were holy cards, St. Anthony, Our Lady, St. Jude. On the back of one of them was written, "For my grandson who will come." There were photos, dozens of photos, developed photos, the kind you'd send to be developed in town and pick up the next week. I picked up the photos, looked at them one by one. The niece I didn't even know existed. Irene, Bernice's daughter, a tiny baby in my mother's arms. A little kid about 6 months old laughing, a little girl about a year old standing, holding Bernice's hand. Bernice had gotten married, had a daughter, and I didn't know anything. There was a photo of the house renovation, my mother's house painted again, a light blue, pretty. There was a birthday photo with cake and candles. There was a Christmas photo with a decorated tree in the corner of the living room. Their life had continued and I had lost everything, every little piece, every moment. At the bottom of the bag there were more envelopes. I picked one up, opened it. It wasn't a letter from my mother. It was my letter, with my handwriting, addressed to my mother. A letter I had written, that I had left for Octavian to take to the post office. He had never taken it. I opened the letter, read what I myself had written. "Mom, how are you? I miss you. Miss the house, your food, Bernice. Everything's fine here. I'm taking care of the house. Octavian is a good husband, but I miss you. Miss you so much. It was the letter I had written crying early in the marriage. It never arrived. I picked up another envelope, another letter of mine, and another and another. There must have been about 15 of my letters in there, all that I had written over 3 years. None had been mailed. All had ended up in the trash bag. I stopped being able to breathe properly. I sat there on the floor, surrounded by letters, photos, gifts, spoiled food, years of love that had been thrown away. I cried in a way I'd never cried in my life. Cried until my chest hurt, until my throat was hoarse. My mother hadn't abandoned me. My sister hadn't forgotten me. They had sent letters, had sent gifts, had sent food, had sent news, and everything had ended up in this bag. Every Monday, for 3 years, Octavian took away a piece of my family, took it and threw it in the trash. He had isolated me on purpose, had lied, had hidden, had made me believe I was alone in the world, that I only had him. He had trapped me inside that house, inside my own head, without me even realizing it. I stayed there I don't know how long. The sun was already high when I managed to get up. I gathered everything back in the bag, but carefully this time. It wasn't trash anymore. It was proof. It was truth. I separated a letter from my mother, the most recent one. It was from 2 weeks ago. Eulalia, my daughter. It's been more than 6 months since I've seen you. I'm worried. Are you sick? Is Octavian not letting you come? Please send me a response or come visit me. I need to know you're okay. 6 months. It had been 6 months since I'd been there. And she was worried. And she thought maybe Octavian wouldn't let me go. She knew. She suspected. I read again the last part. Is Octavian not letting you come? She knew. And I had been so blind, so foolish, had believed every lie, every excuse, every word, had let him convince me I was alone. I looked at the kitchen clock. It was 12:30. Octavian was going to come back for lunch in half an hour, as always. And then, what was I going to do? Confront him? Throw everything in his face? And then, he was my husband. At the time, husbands had all the power. If he wanted to lock me inside the house, he could. If he wanted to prevent me from leaving, he could. A husband's word was worth more than a woman's word. I was scared, very scared. I put the bag back in the utility room, just the way it was, tied the knot again, trying to leave it the same. I washed my face, dried my tears, fixed my hair, warmed up the food left over from the day before. When Octavian arrived, I was in the kitchen serving his plate, as if nothing had happened. But inside, I was shattered. Inside, I was no longer the same person. That lunch was the hardest of my life. I sat in front of Octavian, watched him eat the rice, the beans, the meat I had warmed up, watched him chew slowly, wipe his mouth with the napkin, drink the glass of water. Everything the same, everything as always, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't spent 3 years destroying letters, throwing away gifts, rotting food my mother made with love. He looked at me. Aren't you going to eat, Eulalia? I shook my head. I'm not hungry. I think my stomach's a bit upset. He shrugged, kept eating. I kept looking at him and thinking, who is this man? Do I know him? Did I marry him? This man sitting here in front of me chewing beans? Is he capable of doing something like this? Of lying every day for years, without blinking, without his voice trembling? After lunch, he got up, grabbed his briefcase. I need to get back to the clerk's office. The meeting should last all afternoon. He came to me, kissed my forehead. That cold, dry kiss, without feeling. See you later. When the door closed, I let the air out of my lungs. Hadn't even realized I was holding my breath. I went to the living room window, peeked through the curtain, saw him turn the corner, disappear. I went back to the kitchen, looked at the food on my plate, couldn't eat. My stomach really was closed, upset. I threw the food away, washed the dishes with trembling hands, each movement automatic, without thinking, while my head boiled. What was I going to do? That was the question hammering in my mind. What could I do? If I confronted him, what would happen? Would he deny it? Would he admit it? Would he lock me in the house? At the time, women had nowhere to run. There was no women's shelter, no help, nothing. If a husband wanted to keep a woman at home, he kept her. And everyone thought it was normal. But I couldn't stay there. Couldn't keep living with a man who had robbed me of 3 years of my life, 3 years of my mother, 3 years of my sister, 3 years of a niece I didn't even know. I sat at the kitchen table, my head in my hands, needed to think, needed to do something. But what? The first thing that came to my mind was, my mother needs to know. She needs to know I didn't abandon her, that I sent letters, that I tried. She needs to know the truth. I got paper and pencil, started writing. Mom, I discovered something terrible today. Octavian. I stopped, tore up the paper. How was I going to explain this in a letter? How was I going to put into words what had happened? I tried again. Mom, I need to see you urgently. Please. I stopped again. What if Octavian took this letter too? What if he tore it up, threw it away, and I stayed here with no one knowing what was happening? I spent the whole afternoon in that back and forth. I'd write, tear it up, write, tear it up. Couldn't find the right words. Couldn't find a way to send the letter without Octavian finding out. When the sun started to set, I heard the front door open. He had arrived. I quickly gathered the torn papers, threw them in the trash, went to the living room. How was the meeting? I asked, my voice coming out strange, too high-pitched. He took off his coat, loosened his tie. Tiring. Is there anything for dinner? I made fried eggs with bread. That's what I could manage. He ate without complaining. Then went to the bedroom, lay down, listened to the radio. I washed the dishes, cleaned the kitchen, took as long as I could. Didn't want to go to the bedroom, didn't want to lie in the same bed as him, but had no choice. I went to the bedroom, lay on the edge of the bed with my back to him. Pretended to sleep, but stayed up all night, looking at the dark ceiling, thinking. On Tuesday morning, when he left for work, I got the bag back. I went through it again, confirming it hadn't been a dream, that all of that was real. The letters were still there, the gifts were still there, the spoiled food was still there. I picked up a photo of Irene, looked at that little child, my niece, who I'd never seen. She must be almost 2 years old now, walking, talking, getting into trouble. And I didn't know her little ways, had never held her. I cried again, cried a lot. Then I washed my face, took a deep breath. Needed to be strong, needed to think clearly. Mrs. Clementine. Her name came into my head suddenly, the neighbor who had offered help. If you need anything, you can call me. Could she help me? Could I trust her? I waited until mid-morning, went out to the backyard, pretended I was hanging a dish towel on the line, looked at her backyard. She was there messing with plants with a watering can in her hand. Mrs. Clementine, I called softly. She looked up. Hi, dear. Good morning. Can you come here for a minute? She put down the watering can, came to the fence. What is it? Is everything okay? I looked at the house to make sure I was really alone. I need help, a lot of help, but I can't talk here. Can you come have coffee at my house in a bit? She looked at me with those smart eyes that saw beyond. I can. I'll be there in 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, she knocked on my door. I opened, let her in. Closed quickly, took her to the kitchen, served coffee, a piece of corn cake I'd made the day before. We sat at the table. She took a sip of coffee, looked at me. What's happening, girl? And then I told her. Told her everything. About the letters that didn't arrive. About the visits that became rarer and rarer. About the isolation, the loneliness, and the bag. Told her about the bag I had opened, the letters, the gifts, the spoiled food. I spoke crying, my voice failing, hands trembling. Mrs. Clementine stayed quiet, listening to everything. When I finished, she shook her head slowly. My God in heaven. I knew there was something wrong in this house. I felt it, but I never imagined it was this. I don't know what to do, Mrs. Clementine. I need to tell my mother. I need to get out of here, but I'm scared. Scared of him? Scared of what he might do if he finds out. She took my hand, squeezed it. Her hand was rough, calloused, but warm. You're going to get out of here, yes, but it has to be carefully. A man like that is dangerous. You have to tell your family without him finding out. But how? He controls everything. If I write a letter, he'll take it. If I try to go there, he'll make up some excuse. You write the letter and give it to me. I'll take it to the post office for you. He won't even know. I looked at her. That lady who barely knew me, offering to help me. I felt like hugging her, thanking her on my knees. You'd do that for me? Of course I will, girl. Women have to help women, and you need urgent help. I got paper and pencil right there. I wrote to my mother, wrote fast without stopping, without thinking much, before courage passed. Mom, please read this letter all the way through. I discovered that Octavian has been hiding the letters. All the letters you sent me in the last 3 years, he kept and threw away. I never received any. All the letters I wrote to you, he never mailed. I didn't abandon you, Mom. I swear I didn't know about any of this. I need to get out of here. I need to see you. I can't take it anymore. Please, help me. Your daughter, Lalia. I folded the letter, put it in an envelope I had saved, wrote my mother's address, stuck on the stamp, handed it to Mrs. Clementine. Are you sure? I'm sure. I'll go to the post office today. You can count on me. She put the letter in her apron pocket. And meanwhile, you pretend everything's normal. Don't let him notice you found out. It's dangerous. I know. I'll try. She drank the rest of her coffee, ate the cake. We talked a bit more about unimportant things to disguise in case anyone asked. Then she left. If anything, you scream. I'm right next door. When she left, I felt a small relief, but I felt it. At least now there was someone who knew, someone who could help. I wasn't completely alone. The following days were the worst of my life. I had to pretend normalcy, had to act like nothing had happened. I served Octavian's coffee in the morning, made his lunch, had dinner with him at night, and the whole time inside I was screaming. Was angry, was disgusted. He noticed I was different. On Thursday night he asked, You're acting strange, Eulalia. Did something happen? My heart raced. No, everything's fine. I'm just a little tired. Tired of what? You don't do anything all day except take care of the house. The harshness in his voice scared me. It was the first time he'd spoken to me like that, with that contempt. Sorry, I'm just not sleeping very well. I must have some health problem. Then go to the doctor. Don't stay there complaining. I went silent. He went back to reading the newspaper, but I saw he was suspicious. Saw it in the way he looked at me from the corner of his eye. I needed to be more careful. The letter should take about 5-6 days to get to my mother's house. I counted the days anxiously. Would she receive it? Would she believe it? Would she come get me? A week passed, 2 weeks, nothing. No sign from my mother, no response. I started to get desperate. What if the letter had really gotten lost this time? What if something had happened? In the 3rd week, on a Tuesday afternoon, I was sweeping the living room when I heard a knock at the door. My heart jumped. I went to open it slowly. When I opened it, I was shocked. It was Bernice, my sister, there in front of me after so long. She was different, older, more womanly. She wore a brown dress, her hair pulled back in a bun, and had a little child in her arms. Irene. Bernice. I could barely speak. My voice came out in a hoarse whisper. She came in quickly, pulled me inside, closed the door, hugged me tight. Irene squeezed between us. Eulalia, my sister, I knew it. I always knew there was something wrong. We stood there hugging, crying for a while. Irene started to cry, scared by all those tears. Bernice pulled away, wiped her eyes. We need to talk fast before he gets here. We sat in the living room. Bernice put Irene on the floor, let her play with a little cloth doll. Mom got your letter. She cried, Eulalia. She cried so much. We had no idea. We thought you'd abandoned us, that you'd forgotten about us. I never forgot, Bernice. Never. I sent letters. I swear I did. I know. We know now. That bastard. How could he have the nerve? The anger in her voice was huge. Mom wanted to come get you, but I asked to come instead. She's sick, Eulalia. Since last year she has heart problems. The doctor said she needs to stay calm, can't have strong emotions. I felt the world spin. Mom's been sick since when? Since October last year. We sent a letter to tell you. You didn't receive it. Of course. She practically spit out the words. She was hospitalized for 2 weeks. I took care of her. Wilbur helped me. We got married, in January this year. Small ceremony, simple. We waited for you, Eulalia. Waited until the last minute, thinking you'd show up. Mom cried through the whole wedding, saying her oldest daughter didn't even care. Each word was a stab. Each piece of information I'd missed. Each moment I didn't have. I didn't know, Bernice. I swear to God I didn't know any of this. I know. The letter made everything clear, and that's why I came to get you today. Right now. Now? What do you mean? Now you're coming with me. You're going to pack your things, whatever you can carry, and you're leaving with me. You're going back to Mom's house. You're going to start your life over. But what about Octavian? When he gets here and doesn't find me? To hell with Octavian. Bernice spoke loudly, then lowered her voice, remembering where she was. Sorry, but he has no right to you. He trapped you, lied to you, robbed you. You don't owe him anything. But he's my husband, Bernice. By law, he has rights. Not if we tell everyone what he did. Not if we show the letters, the gifts. Everyone in town will know what kind of man he is. He'll have no respect left. No one will respect him anymore. She was right. Scandal was the worst thing that could happen to a man at the time. Losing the community's respect meant losing everything. But he can make up stories, can say I'm crazy, that I invented everything. That's why you're going to take the bag. You're going to take the proof. The bag. I'd forgotten about the bag. I ran to the utility room. It was still there with everything inside. I grabbed it, took it to the living room, showed Bernice. It's all here. Everything's here. She opened it, looked at the letters, the gifts, the spoiled food. Her face got more and more serious, more and more hard. My God, he's sick. He's sick in the head. She closed the bag. Get your clothes quickly. We need to leave before he comes back. I went to the bedroom, grabbed an old bundle I had, started throwing clothes inside. Dress, skirt, blouse, underwear. I didn't have much, never had much. In 10 minutes, I'd gathered everything. I came back to the living room. Bernice was with Irene in her lap, the bag at her feet. Ready. I looked around. That house I'd thought would be my home, my family, my happiness. That house that had been my prison for 3 years. Ready. We left through the front door. I didn't look back, didn't want to. The walk to my mother's house was long, very long. It was almost 3 miles, and we went slowly because of Irene. Bernice carried her in her arms. I carried the bundle of clothes in one hand and the bag in the other. That heavy bag full of pain, full of truth. The sun was hot. It was mid-afternoon. We'd stop once in a while to rest, to give Irene water, to breathe. I'd look back once in a while, afraid of seeing Octavian coming after me. But the street was empty. Bernice held my free hand as we walked. It's all okay now, sister. You're going to be fine. We're going to take care of you. And I wanted to believe. Wanted so much to believe everything was going to be okay. On the way, she told me about the things I'd missed. Told me about her wedding to Wilbur. That it had been at church early in the morning, with a simple dress my mother had sewn. Told me she'd gotten pregnant right after, that the pregnancy was difficult, that she'd been sick the first months. Told me about the day Irene was born, that it was a long labor, more than 12 hours, that my mother stayed by her side the whole time. Told me about the first time Irene smiled, the first words she said, "Mommy and Grandma." Each story was a stab, not from anger at Bernice, but from anger at having missed all of that, at not having been there, at not having held my sister's hand during labor, at not having seen my niece grow up. "She looks just like you when you were a baby," Bernice said, looking at Irene. "Mom always comments on it, says it's you reincarnated." I looked at the girl. She had brown hair, big eyes, a small mouth. Was she really like me? I didn't remember myself as a baby. Didn't have a full-length mirror at home when I was a child to see myself properly. When we were getting close to my mother's street, my heart started racing. I started shaking. Bernice noticed. "Calm down. She's going to be so happy to see you. So happy." We turned the corner. The house was there, the same house as always, but different. The paint was new, light blue, just like I'd seen in the photos. There were flowers in the front garden, red geraniums my mother loved. The little wooden gate was open. We entered the yard. Bernice let me go first. "Go, knock on the door." But I couldn't move. Was paralyzed. Was scared. Scared of seeing my mother sick, scared of seeing disappointment on her face for taking so long to come back. Bernice knocked on the door for me. We waited, heard slow footsteps coming from inside. The door opened, and there she was. My mother, Alma. She was thinner, much thinner than I remembered. Her face had more wrinkles, her hair had more white strands. She wore a simple gray dress, an apron over it, and when she saw me, her face transformed. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened, her hand went to her chest. "Eulalia." Her voice came out weak, tremulous, as if she didn't believe I was really there. "Hi, Mom." She took a step forward, another, one more, and hugged me. Hugged me so tight, so hard, that I felt short of breath. But I didn't want her to let go ever again. We stood there hugging in the middle of the doorway, both of us crying. She ran her hand through my hair, on my face, as if she wanted to make sure I was real. My daughter came back, my girl came home. We went inside. The house was the same and different at the same time. The furniture was the same, the table, the chairs, the old living room sofa. But there were new things. There were photos on the wall, photos from Bernice's wedding, photos of Irene, family photos I wasn't in. My mother made me sit on the sofa, sat next to me, held my hand, wouldn't stop looking at me, wouldn't stop touching my face, my arm, as if she needed to confirm all the time that I was there. "You're so thin, Lalia, so pale. He treated you badly, didn't he?" I couldn't answer, could only cry. And she pulled me into her lap, just like she did when I was little and hurt my knee playing in the street. She rocked me, ran her hand through my hair, made that sound that calmed me. Bernice brought the bag, put it on the table. "Mom, you need to see what's in here." My mother went to the table, opened the bag, started taking things out one by one. The letters, the gifts, the spoiled food, Grandma's shawl, the photos of Irene. She picked up a letter, opened it, read it, then another and another. Tears streamed down her face, falling on the paper. When she finished, she turned to me. "That man, that bastard. How did he have the nerve?" "I didn't know, Mom. I swear I didn't know." "Abandon you, my daughter? I never in my life. You're my daughter, my blood, my life." She came back to the sofa, hugged me again. "Forgive this old mother. Forgive me for not realizing sooner, for not going to get you." "There's nothing to forgive, Mom. It's not your fault. The fault is his. Only his." We spent the whole afternoon talking. I told her everything from the beginning, how he had started isolating me little by little, slowly, how he had planted doubt in my head, how I had believed you didn't care about me anymore. Told her about the loneliness, the silence, the emptiness. Told her about the day I opened the bag and discovered the truth. My mother listened to everything, her hand squeezing mine, tears falling non-stop. Bernice was also crying, with Irene sleeping in her lap. When I finished, it was already getting dark outside. My mother got up, went to the kitchen, warmed up food she'd made for lunch: rice, beans, fried chicken. The smell filled the house, that smell of mother's food, of a real home, of home. We ate together. Me, my mother, Bernice, Wilbur, who had arrived from work, Irene, who woke up and wanted to eat too. A family again. My family. After dinner, my mother took me to the bedroom. The bedroom that had been mine and Bernice's. It was the same. The same bed, the same wardrobe, the same window that looked onto the backyard. Your place has always been here, Lalia. Always. That night, I slept in my single bed, under the blanket my grandmother had made, hearing the sounds of the house. And for the first time in 3 years, I really slept. Slept without fear, without anguish, without loneliness. The next day, early in the morning, there was a knock at the door, strong, insistent. I was helping my mother make coffee when I heard it. My whole body froze. I knew who it was. I knew. My mother looked at me. "Stay here. Don't leave the kitchen." She went to the door, opened just a crack. I could hear from the kitchen. "Good morning, Mrs. Alma. I came to get my wife." Octavian's voice, cold, controlled. "She's not going with you. With all due respect, she's my wife. I have the right to take her back home. You have no right to her after what you did. And what did I do, according to you? You know very well what you did. You hid letters, threw gifts away, lied, manipulated, isolated my daughter from me for 3 years." Silence. Then his voice again, more tense. "Those are lies. Eulalia has been confused, imagining things. She needs me to take care of her." "Lies?" My mother went out, came back with the bag, dumped the contents on the porch floor. The letters scattered, the envelopes, the gifts. "Lies are this. Lies are the letters I sent that you hid. The gifts I made with my own hands that you threw in the trash." Another silence. Longer. I could imagine his face seeing everything exposed there. "I can explain." "You don't need to explain anything. You're not going to get near my daughter ever again. And if you try, I'll go to every house in this town. I'll show these letters to everyone. I'll tell what you did. You'll lose everyone's respect. No one will even want to look at your face." "You can't do that. I work at the clerk's office. I have a reputation." "Exactly. You have more to lose than we do. So you're going to leave now. You're going to leave my daughter alone, and you're going to pretend this marriage never existed. Understood?" I'd never heard my mother speak like that. Firm, hard, without fear. She was protecting me, just like she always did, just like she always would. There were footsteps moving away. I heard the gate slam. My mother came back inside, closed the door, locked it, came to the kitchen, hugged me. "It's over. He left. He won't bother you anymore." And he didn't. Never again. After that day, Octavian disappeared from my life. I found out later that he'd asked for a transfer to the clerk's office in another town, that he'd left the region in shame. The story of what he'd done spread fast. Small towns don't keep secrets, and he had become persona non grata. I stayed living with my mother. Helped her with sewing. Took care of Irene when Bernice needed to go out. Cooked, cleaned. Little by little I went back to being myself, or rather, I became a new version of me. Stronger, smarter, more careful. I had to deal with a lot. With the guilt of having lost 3 years. With anger at Octavian. With the fear of trusting again. There were nights I'd wake up sweating, dreaming I was back in that house, in that silence, in that prison. But then I'd open my eyes, see the familiar room, hear my mother snoring softly in the next room, and remember, I was free. I had gotten out. I had survived. My mother's heart got better little by little. The doctor said part of her illness was sadness, was worry about me. When I came back, when she saw I was okay, that I was home, she started getting better, got color back in her face, started smiling more, got her energy back. The years passed. 1972, 73, 74. I healed slowly, learned to live again, made friends with the neighborhood women, started going out more, talking, laughing. And then, in 1975, I met Albert. He was a truck driver, passed through town once in a while to make deliveries. One day, he stopped in front of the house to ask for directions, saw me in the yard hanging laundry, asked for a glass of water, stayed talking, came back the next week and the next and the next. Albert was different from everything I'd known. He was open, honest, laughed loud, said what he thought. No games, no manipulation. He treated me as an equal, respected me, listened to me. He knew my story. My mother told him everything, and he didn't judge me. Didn't think I was weak, didn't think I was foolish. Said I was brave for having left. We dated for 2 years, got married in 1977. I was 28 years old. Small wedding at the same church where I'd married Octavian. But this time it was different. This time it was real. This time it was true love. With Albert, I had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, Claude, Maurice, and Judith. Raised them with all the love I had inside me, all the love I had stored during those 3 years of prison. Gave them the childhood I'd wanted to give my children if I'd stayed with Octavian. Freedom, laughter, affection. My mother lived to be 83, saw her grandchildren grow up, saw her great-grandchildren born, died peacefully in her sleep in 1996. I held her hand until her last breath, and the last thing she said to me was, "You're my pride, Lalia. You always were." Albert passed away 10 years ago from a stroke. I miss him every day, but I know he lived well, that we were happy, that every day we spent together was worth it. Today I'm 72 years old. I have 3 children, 7 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren. My house is always full of people, noise, life. Everything I always wanted, everything I was denied in those 3 years. I still think about Octavian once in a while. Not with anger, not anymore, but with pity. Pity for a man so insecure, so controlling, that he thought he needed to trap me to keep me. He never married again, I heard, never had children. Died alone about 15 years ago in a town I don't even know the name of. This story I told here today isn't just about sadness. It's about survival. It's about starting over. It's about having the courage to open that bag, to face the truth even when it hurts. It's about accepting help when it appears. It's about going back home to the place that was always yours. A lot of people ask me if I regret marrying Octavian, and I answer no. Because those 3 years, as painful as they were, taught me things. Taught me to value freedom. Taught me to recognize manipulation. Taught me that loneliness isn't lack of people, it's lack of true connection. Taught me that it's never, never really too late to start over. I left that house at 22, rebuilt my life, was happy, very happy. And if I could do it, you can too. No matter how old you are, no matter how long you've been trapped in a bad situation, it's always possible to leave. It's always possible to start over. It's always possible to open that bag and face the truth. And you know what's most important? Family isn't who traps you. Family is who sets you free. True family is the one that knocks on your door when you're lost, that extends a hand, that takes you back home. It's my mother facing Octavian at the door. It's Bernice dropping everything to come get me. It's Mrs. Clementine taking my letter hidden. Never forget that. If you liked this story, if it touched your heart in some way, leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel to hear more stories from grandmas like me, who have lived a lot, who have suffered a lot, but who are here to tell you it's worth continuing. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been through a similar situation? Do you know someone who has? Share with me. I read everything with my heart. A kiss to the heart of each one of you. And remember, while there's life, there's hope. While there's hope, there's a new beginning.